And this food system, that when you go back to your schools and say, it's not very good, we need to create some alternatives, people are going to say, are you kidding me? It's not very good. You can get a pineapple in November for $3. That is a food system that's kicking butt. You can get anything you want, whenever you want, for barely any money. What could possibly be the problem with that? This food system is so great because food is cheap. Think about that for just a minute. Cheap. Anybody want to be cheap?
No.
What does cheap mean? Low quality, poorly made, easily obtained. Anybody want to be that?
No way.
Do you want to put low quality crap in your body? The most intimate thing you can do? You want that to be cheap? Would you want that for your friends? For your family? For other people you care about? The price is cheap, but the cost is high. And you may have to explain some of these things to people. But more importantly than that is the project that you'll do. So we'll talk about the negative just a little bit, and then the positive. The cost is cheap, but the price is high. What's some of the price? What is it? What's the real effect of having this food system? And I know you learned some of this stuff today. What's it take to get tomatoes that cost nothing in Florida? What's it take to make those tomatoes? How is that even possible?
Cheap labor.
Yeah.
Really cheap labor. That's a really good point. Really cheap labor. Now, who would do cheap labor? People who don't have other options. That's really good. Now, do you know there's a word for that? When you take advantage of someone who has no other option, do you know what that's called?
Exploitation.
Exploitation. That's very good. Have you heard that word before? It's really bad. You don't want to be exploiting anybody. That's really bad, and you don't want to be exploited. And you don't want to put cheap things in your body. What else has to happen besides that cheap labor to get this food that doesn't cost anything to your school?
Gas.
Yeah, gasoline. It's a big carbon footprint. Now, it used to be just a few years ago, people would say, we need to grow more food close to where we eat it because we're going to run out of gas. I don't think we're going to run out of gas anymore. I almost wish we were, so that would be motivation for us to create new alternatives. But in eastern Montana and western North Dakota, unfortunately, there's enough gas to last all of our lifetimes. And we're going to keep pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and we'll have Hurricane Sandys and Hurricane Katrinas and droughts and all the rest of it. So if we can do something even small around the edges to reduce carbon footprint, that's a really good idea. What else? What else does it take to get those cheap tomatoes? We've got cheap labor and a lot of gas. Do you know how those tomatoes are typically grown?
Fertilizers.
They're grown with a lot of chemical fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. And there's some real justice issues here that I think are compelling and important. When we put these things into the ground, it's really bad for the ground. It makes it really hard to grow anything later unless you keep on using this chemical system. We make the ground addicted to this stuff, addicted to poison. And those people who have no other options, who are exploited, who are working for barely any money, they are hip deep in toxins. And along the central coast of California, there are towns that are referred to by public health officials as cancer clusters. Not towns, but cancer clusters. And these are people who are working hip deep in toxins, so we get cheap lettuce at Albertsons in January when we have no business eating lettuce. Now, why is it, do you think, we allow these things to happen?
People don't think about it.
They don't think about it. That's very good. I totally agree with you. And I think they don't think about it because these things happen so far away. I mean, every one of you here has a lot going on. How do you have room in your brain, in your heart, to think about people in Florida or California that have lives totally different than your own? It's super hard. Because our food comes from so far away, there's not only a geographic distance, but an intellectual distance. And it makes this kind of thing possible. If you were to be walking down the street in Missoula, just imagine this. You're walking down the street, and you see somebody slam into a parked car in their car, destroy that car, and then they back up and you get a look at the license plate, and then you see this woman coming running out of her house, it was her car that got trashed, and you see that license plate, how many people here would just put your head down and walk away? Most of you would say, it was the license plate, I saw it said 4C11 and I'm calling 911. This bad thing happened and you saw it and you would take it on yourself to take action. But that bad thing happened in my little made up story 10 feet away from you. This bad thing we're talking about, the food system, happens so far away. Like you said, how can we think about it? We don't see it. It's not in our face. It's super hard. I think the best tack to take when you go back to your schools is not to try and do what I'm doing now, not because I'm a professional, I'm just a vegetable farmer. I think the thing to do is to create alternatives that are so wonderful. People are drawn to them. And you don't have to worry about condemning the crap food system that poisons people and land and culture. Make something better. And there are great reasons to make something better, beyond the negatives I just told you about. Anybody have any ideas? What are some of the great reasons to do these things? What will this do for your community, to your community, for and to your friends and neighbors if you had more food locally available?
Brings the community together.
Brings the community together. That is fantastic.
Economically better.
It's economically better. I didn't even get to explain them. You're getting them so fast. So can I explain some of these? These are two really good ones. Bringing the community together. So all of us, I think, in our hearts want to be a local. You know what I mean? Like we want to be from someplace. We want to be from a place we believe is as cool as we think we are. We can make our places be like that. You may talk about kale or lettuce or chard and people are like, well, whatever, I don't, I'm being judged. That was what they say. But if you bring into their kitchen this beautiful food, they're like, you grew that? And if you make really beautiful food, you're going to want to take some time in the cooking because the food's beautiful that you grew. And you take some time cooking it because now you're caring about the ingredients. And once you make beautiful food, you're not just going to eat it in the car as you drive somewhere. You probably want to sit down and eat it with people who live with you and share that food. Woo! Now you're sitting down, talking to people face to face. The table is this big magnet, brings the food together, brings the people together. Somebody, you said this really well, brings the community together. This can happen house by house, block by block. Good food makes people turn off their television and their everything and actually sit down, stare at each other, and share something wonderful. The biggest act of dissent and of revolution that you could take is to cook.